Welcome back for another deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
This time we're taking a look at Stephen King's The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of requests to do The Shining, so I'm excited we're finally getting to it. And today, we're going to specifically focus on how the relationships between the characters, like all their internal struggles,
Yeah.
play a role in all the terrifying things that happen.
Yeah.
You want to go, deeper than just the spooky stuff on the surface.
Right. Exactly.
For this deep dive, we've got a synopsis of the book and then also this really cool academic article to help us kind of unpack everything.
Perfect.
So, all right, let's jump right in. The Torrance family, Jack, Wendy, and their son, Danny, they become the winter caretakers of this super isolated hotel called the Overlook Hotel.
Right.
They're hoping for kind of a fresh start, right?
Yeah.
But even before they get to the hotel, the book makes it pretty clear that Jack's inner world is a bit of a mess.
Yeah, it's really interesting how King reveals this early on. I mean, you see it through Jack's internal dialogue, right?
Uh-huh.
He's a recovering alcoholic, and he's dealing with a past that's full of violence. It's like he's got this deep-seated rage.
Yeah.
And his ambitions to be a writer, they're all tangled up in all this darkness.
It's almost like his creative energy is being poisoned by all these inner demons.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's almost like it's tainted somehow.
Yeah. The sources point out that Jack really sees this isolation as a chance to reconnect with his family
Mm-hmm.
and also, finally finish his novel.
Yeah.
But there's this undercurrent of something darker, I think, in his thoughts. Maybe he sees the Overlook's isolation as a chance to kind of indulge those darker impulses he has.
Well, I think what's so striking is how King uses the imagery of the Overlook Hotel to kind of mirror what's going on inside Jack.
Yeah.
The hotel itself is this massive decaying structure. It's full of secrets, whispers of past tragedies,
Right.
It's like a place that's literally falling apart, just like Jack's psyche.
That's a great point. It's like the Overlook is this physical manifestation of Jack's struggles.
Exactly.
Then we have Wendy, Jack's wife.
Right.
The sources paint her as kind of this woman who's trapped in this cycle of abuse. She's desperately trying to keep her family together.
The term codependency comes up a lot in the analysis of Wendy's character.
Mm.
She's constantly downplaying Jack's violence, making excuses for him, even when he broke Danny's arm.
I know.
It's like she's living in this constant state of denial, hoping if she just tries hard enough, everything will be okay.
It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The sources suggest that Wendy's codependency is partly shaped by the societal expectations placed on women back then. There's this feeling that she's been conditioned to believe she needs to fix Jack,
You're right.
be the good wife who can save him from himself.
And that's where the real danger lies, I think.
Yeah.
Because by focusing on saving Jack, she's ignoring her own needs and, more importantly, her son Danny's needs. She gets so caught up in Jack's world that she becomes blind to the threat he poses to their son.
So we've got Jack, this deeply troubled man with a history of violence. We've got Wendy, who's struggling with codependency and caught in this cycle of denial.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Danny, this totally innocent child who's stuck in the middle of it all.
And to make matters worse, Danny has the shining, this psychic ability that lets him sense the evil in the Overlook.
Right.
So he's not only exposed to the darkness in his family, but he's also a magnet for the supernatural forces in the hotel.
It's almost like King is setting up this incredibly vulnerable character.
Mm-hmm.
He's this innocent kid surrounded by danger on all sides.
Yeah.
He's got this abusive father, a mother who's too afraid to do anything, and in this hotel that seems to feed on his psychic abilities.
It's almost unbearable to imagine what he's going through. I mean, he sees his father's anger, his mother's fear, and then he's bombarded by these terrifying visions from the Overlook's past.
No wonder he starts to withdraw and become more isolated.
Ex-
It's like he's trapped in a nightmare that he can't wake up from.
Right.
And the sources suggest that his shining, Danny's shining, actually makes him even more vulnerable to the Overlook.
It's like this gift, this ability is also a curse.
Right.
It makes him a beacon for all the evil in the hotel. And because he's just a kid, he doesn't have the tools to cope with what he's experiencing.
It's really disturbing when you consider the neglect that Danny experiences from his parents.
It's not just the overt abuse from Jack, but also the neglect from Wendy,
Yeah.
She's so focused on managing Jack's moods and keeping up this appearance of normalcy that she doesn't see the impact it's having on Danny.
This dynamic is so disturbing because it's something that happens in real life too. When a
Mhm.
parent's dealing with their own issues, they often don't have the ability to really take care of their kids' needs.
It's tragic because Danny is clearly such a sensitive and perceptive kid. I mean, he's aware of the tension between his parents, and he's picking up on the bad energy in the hotel. But because Wendy's so in denial, she misses the signs that he's struggling.
It's like she's so focused on keeping Jack from, exploding
Yeah.
that she doesn't see the damage that's already being done to Danny. And this is where I think the real horror of The Shining lies. It's not just ghosts and supernatural stuff. It's about the real consequences of neglect and abuse in a family.
Right. It hits so close to home. Yeah, it's a chilling reminder that the scariest things aren't always like the supernatural ones. Sometimes it's the people who are supposed to love and protect you, you know?
Yeah, it makes you think about Danny being so vulnerable and how the Overlook itself kind of targets those weaknesses. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. One of the sources talks about how the Overlook seems to amplify the darkness that's already inside people.
Hmm.
It's almost like it's feeding off of their negative emotions.
Yeah,
And, with the Torrances and all their tension and problems, it's like throwing gasoline on a fire.
total. If you think about it, both Jack and Danny are kind of uniquely susceptible to the Overlook.
Oh, that's a great point. Jack, with all his anger and his addiction, he's really drawn to the hotel's darkness, right? All that decay and lawlessness. It's like he finds a kindred spirit there, like a place he can finally just let go.
And then Danny, with his shining, he becomes this target for all those supernatural things in the hotel. It's like the Overlook sees how sensitive he is, how he can see things other people can't, and it just grabs hold of him.
And the worst part is he's just a kid. He doesn't know how to handle any of that. He's caught between his parents in this creepy hotel.
The sources say that in some ways the Overlook represents the dangers of being isolated.
Like it's this pressure cooker, where you're cut off from everybody and everything. And in that kind of environment, all the problems, all the cracks in your relationships, they get so much worse.
It's almost like a microcosm of society,
Yeah.
where the people who are already struggling, they get taken advantage of.
And that brings us back to Wendy. The sources, they're pretty hard on her.
Yeah, she's in a tough spot, but it's hard to ignore that she's passive about Jack, how she denies what he really is. It all leads to Danny getting hurt.
One of the sources actually calls Wendy's story a warning about putting your partner's needs before your kid's safety.
It's a tough thing to hear, but it's true. Her codependency, how she wants to pretend everything's fine, it blinds her to what's happening to her son.
And it's not just about recognizing abuse, it's about doing something about it. The sources say Wendy is so scared to cause problems to confront Jack that she lets him keep doing what he's doing.
It's like she's frozen with fear. She's scared of what'll happen if she stands up to him, scared of being alone, scared of what she doesn't know.
And the Overlook uses that fear. It feeds off it, all that uncertainty and helplessness.
This makes me think that even though the Overlook is a real place, it also stands for something bigger, like the darkness that we all have inside us.
Like King is saying that the real scary stuff isn't ghosts or monsters, it's the potential for bad things that we all have within us.
Wow. It really makes you think. If the Overlook is that internal darkness, how do we face it? How do you break free from all the bad stuff?
That's the question all the characters in The Shining have to deal with.
And it's a question we should ask ourselves too.
Because The Shining isn't just about a haunted hotel. It's about the choices we make, the courage we find, and how we protect ourselves and the people we love from the darkness, both inside and out.
That's really powerful. It reminds us that we all have to do our part to fight the darkness in ourselves and in the world.
And we have to know ourselves, know our weaknesses, and be strong enough to do what's right, even when it's hard.
Listening to you talk about the Overlook and the Torrances makes me think there's another layer to this that we haven't really talked about yet.
Oh, I'm curious. What do you mean?
We've said the Overlook is like a physical form of Jack's problems and that it shows how dangerous isolation is. But what if it also stands for something else? Like all the pressure and expectations that society puts on families.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. They're stuck in this old, falling apart hotel, and they're trying to be this perfect family. Jack's supposed to be a successful writer, the strong guy who takes care of everything. Wendy's supposed to be the perfect wife and mom, always there to support him and keep the peace.
And Danny's in the middle of all of that, trying to figure out his parents and deal with his own problems, too.
Exactly. And the Overlook, with all its creepy history and bad vibes. It's like a symbol of all the anxiety and stress that can weigh a family down.
It's like the hotel itself is a symbol of those impossible standards that society puts on families, those standards that are almost impossible to live up to, especially when you're already struggling.
Right. And all the problems they have, all those things they don't talk about, they just get bigger in the Overlook. It's like the pressure cooker we were talking about before.
But it's not just pressure from inside the family, it's pressure from society, too. It's like all the expectations, the fear of failing, the need to look a certain way, all of that is what breaks the Torrance family apart.
It's like King is using the Overlook to show how that pressure from the outside can get into our personal relationships.
Yeah.
It messes with our heads, makes us more anxious, and can even make us do things we never thought we would.
Yeah. It's scary to think that the scariest things aren't always out there somewhere. Sometimes they come from inside us, from the pressure we put on ourselves, the roles we try to play, and trying to be what other people expect us to be.
And that struggle, trying to be who we are and who we think we should be, I think a lot of people understand that.
Totally. It's something we all experience, that feeling of being stuck between what we want and what everyone else wants from us. And in The Shining, King takes that feeling and makes it really extreme and scary.
And it's not just families either. It's about how that pressure from society, those expectations that can change who we are, that can happen in any relationship, any group, anywhere, really.
We're all affected by those pressures, those voices telling us who to be, how to act, what we should be doing. And sometimes those voices are just as bad as any ghost or monster.
It's like the Overlook is a mirror, showing us not just our own darkness, but also the darkness in the world around us.
And that might be the scariest thing about The Shining. Realizing that the scariest things aren't always outside of us, they often come from the way our society is built.
This deep dive has taken us to some pretty dark places, hasn't it? We've talked about how complicated families can be, how society pressures us, and the potential for bad things that we all have.
But we've also learned a lot, haven't we? We talked about the importance of knowing ourselves, being strong, and being brave enough to break free from unhealthy patterns.
As we finish up this part of our conversation, there's one question I keep coming back to.
What's that?
Well, if we say that the Overlook, with all its scary stuff, also represents the pressure society puts on us, then shouldn't we be doing something about that? Shouldn't we be trying to create a world where people and families are supported and encouraged instead of being crushed by all these expectations?
That's a really deep question, and it's one we need to think carefully about. Because The Shining isn't just about a haunted hotel, it's about the choices we make, the world we build, and how those things affect real people's lives.
We've talked about The Shining in so many different ways, like the psychology of the characters, the Overlook Hotel, and even how it relates to the pressures society puts on families.
It's really amazing how King ties all of that together. I mean, it really makes you think, even after you're done reading it, you start to wonder not just about evil, but about things in our own lives that can cause darkness.
Yeah. Thinking about Danny and how he's vulnerable to both his dad's abuse and the influence of the Overlook makes me wonder if King is also saying something about how children are often the ones who are hurt the most in society.
Oh, absolutely. Danny, with his Shining, he represents innocence, Like he's so sensitive, which lets him see things, but also makes him vulnerable. He sees the darkness that other people miss, but he can't really protect himself from it.
And it's not just about the ghosts and stuff. The sources also say that Danny is neglected, He's abused by Jack, and then Wendy can't really see or meet his needs.
One of the things that really stuck out to me was how King uses Dick Halloran, the chef at the Overlook, who also has The Shining, to give a little bit of hope to Danny.
Oh, yeah. Halloran can sense Danny's fear and reaches out to him. They form this connection, like telepathically, even though they're not physically close.
Right. And it's through that connection that Danny finds some peace and comfort. It's like King is saying that even when things are really bad, there's always the possibility of connecting with another person, finding someone who sees your pain.
It's such a powerful message, especially when we see how isolated and alone Danny is for a lot of the story. He's surrounded by adults who are either dealing with their own stuff or trying to hurt him, and then he finds this lifeline in Halloran.
And it's not just about finding someone who gets it, but also about being brave enough to ask for help, to talk about the abuse and neglect that's happening.
That's something Wendy really struggles with in the book. She's so used to ignoring her own needs and putting Jack's feelings first that it's super hard for her to speak up, even when she knows something is really wrong.
She's trapped, like in a cage that she built herself out of societal expectations and fear. She just wants so desperately to keep up the appearance of a happy family.
And the Overlook with that heavy atmosphere and all those reminders of bad things that happen there, it almost makes that feeling of being trapped even worse. It's like the hotel itself represents the things that keep us quiet, that stop us from saying what we need to say and getting help.
It's interesting how King shows that isolation of the Overlook next to the power of human connection.
Mhm.
We see it with Danny and Halloran, but also when Wendy finally decides to fight back and protect herself and Danny from Jack.
Yeah, that's a good point. But like in that moment, Wendy breaks out of that cage of fear and finds a strength she didn't know she had.
And it's not like she suddenly gets superpowers or anything. It comes from her wanting to protect her son. That motherly instinct is stronger than all the fear and pressure that's been holding her back.
So even though the end of The Shining is sad and disturbing, it also kind of gives us hope. It shows us that even in the darkest situations, we can find strength, connect with others, and fight to survive for ourselves and the people we love.
It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles. There are good and bad things inside of us and out in the world, and it's the choices we make, the connections we build, and how brave we are that make all the difference.
As we finish up this deep dive into The Shining, I'm amazed by how much of an impact King's story has. It goes way beyond just horror and makes us think about human nature, the pressures of society, and how hope can still exist in the dark.
It challenges us to face our own demons, to look at the things that make up our lives, and to never forget how important it is to connect with other people, feel empathy, and be strong.
We started this deep dive wanting to see how the relationships and struggles of the characters create the horror. And I think we found something even deeper than that. How King uses this scary story to show the darkness we all have, but also the potential for good that we all have inside us.
It reminds us that even in the loneliest places, the human spirit can always find a way to shine.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through The Shining. We hope you learned some new things about this complicated and scary story, and maybe it'll even make you think about your own experiences with darkness and light and the choices you make when things are difficult.